Hello SS3 students, welcome to another revision class. This is your teacher, Mrs. Cynthia Okechukwu. I've received a lot of requests. Please ma, we want to write, we want to do assignments and all that. Yes, I know. And I'm sorry this is coming later than it was scheduled to, but I hope we can achieve something within this few minutes. Okay, how are you? I hope you're staying safe. I hope you are also studying. This is not a time to throw your books away. Normally, if things had been, the normal way, by now you should have been done with your WAEC exams, your SS exams, and probably going through the NECO exams, either just beginning the NECO exams or just about to conclude. But then I also believe that everything happens for a reason. There is no such thing as being too prepared or over prepared, but there's something like being well prepared. So this break, this time affords you the opportunity to study, go back to the books, look at those things that, those areas where you have had some issues before, possibly call your teacher, ask your teacher to explain a little further, or study a little more on your own. Okay, so this is not a time to play. It's not a time to sleep, but it's a time to continue to study. All right, in the last revision lesson I had with you, we looked at essay questions, just an overview of how to answer essay questions in the exam. But today I'm going to pick out comprehension questions. How do we approach comprehension questions in the SSC and NECO exams? All right, so let's get right into it. Okay, but before we do that, let me give you some tips for studying at home. These tips are really important, and I know that they will help you. We still have a few weeks, I believe, maybe 2-3 weeks before, hopefully, before everything goes back to normal. This is my hope. This is my prayer. It's not a fact. I just believe that we still have maybe 2 or 3 weeks before things go back to normal. But within this time, if I am right and if my prayers are answered by God, within this time, I know that I believe that these tips could be of some form of help to you. So tip number 1, create a dedicated study space. Now this is really important. Create a space that is for yourself alone. The space can be anywhere, but just make sure it's a place that is comfortable, a place where you're comfortable in to study. It can be in your bedroom. It can be anywhere in the house. But the important thing is that, number 1, it's dedicated to you alone. And when you are there, nobody calls on you. I know we are at home with our parents now, so we owe our parents a little help here and there, some chores in the house, in helping with some chores in the house and all that. Just make sure that when you want to get into this space, you're done with your chores. You do not owe the family anything. So when you get into your space, they also know that you shouldn't be called upon. Creating a dedicated study space helps you to study, helps you to remain focused. Secondly, plan your time. This is really important. It is important to plan your time. Get a timetable for yourself. Structure a timetable for yourself, and let it walk around it. Let it walk around your schedule. Let it be comfortable with your timetable, and let your timetable also be comfortable with you. Now, for me, I know that some of you are some people. Let me not say some of you. Some people love to read for a very long time, for a long period. There are some people that can sit down and read for a stretch of about 2 hours, 3 hours. Well, for me, it doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. For me, I prefer to read for little bits of time. For instance, I can read for 15 minutes, take a 15 minutes break, and then come back and read for another 15 minutes, and then I'm done for that period. Okay? Then some of you may want to just finish up at a stretch. It is good if you understand what you're reading, but I will always advise that if you want to read at a stretch continuously like that for 2 hours, 3 hours, just make sure that within these 2 or 3 hours, you get up and stretch a little bit, maybe walk around a little bit or something, just to keep yourself alert. Another way you can keep yourself alert is if you get some snacks you can chew on. When I say snacks, I do not mean that you must tell your parents, okay, I want to read, so let me go and get me meat pie from Mr. Biggs. No. When I mean snacks, it could just be biscuits, maybe peanuts or something, just something to keep you alert, not something to make you satisfied, so that you say, okay, Mrs. Okechukwu said we should study and we should eat. That is not what I am saying. I am saying that you should get a snack, something small to keep you alert, not something to feed you at that point in time. Okay? So plan your time, make sure that you adhere to your time, to the timetable especially. I always tell you in class that discipline. To become somebody that is disciplined in life, it doesn't start when you become an adult. Discipline begins now. And these are some of those steps you will take or you can take to ensure that you are disciplined eventually. But by the time you train yourself to adhere to your timetable, this is discipline, and it helps in other areas of your life. Thirdly, be organized. Be organized. Do not throw your books around. If you have created a study space for yourself, you can just get your books and arrange them in your space. Arrange them in such a way that if you have certain subjects today, make sure that those subjects are ready. The books and the materials you're going to use are ready for that day, so that you don't start walking around. There's something, when you enter into your space, believe it or not, you are going there with a certain, I don't know what to call it, aura or something. There's just something that comes over you when you get into your study space. And if you begin to move around from place to place, you get distracted. So organize your books in such a way that you can easily get them. If you need to go to your study space with snacks and drinks, make sure you go with them when you're about to begin your studying. Do not study for 30 minutes and then you get up, okay, I want to go and take my snack. Your snack should be there with you, even as you stretch, okay, to get back to your studies when you take a break. Then use communication tools to your advantage. In my days, we didn't have the advantages of the phone, tablets, laptops, the internet, okay? You have these devices to your advantage. They are communication tools. They are not just meant for WhatsApp chatting and looking at the latest trends and all that. You can also use them to your advantage. Study. If you go on YouTube, apart from the videos you have of our teachers of Sleek Angels bringing some lessons to you, you also have other people from all over the world teaching various topics of various subjects, in various subjects. So you can also click on some of these things and learn a little more. Stay ahead, people. Don't wait until you are told what to do. Okay, so use these communication tools to your advantage. In English language, especially in comprehension, you're going to be doing a lot of synonyms and all that, synonyms and spellings, grammatical issues and all that. You can use your phone. Sometimes when you come across a new word and you do not know the meaning of the word, use Google. Google is always there. Google is more than ready to assist. Even when you type in the wrong spelling in Google, Google has a way of correcting it for you. So use these communication tools to your advantage. They're not just there for you to chat. And then stay actively involved in your studies related to what I have just said. You can use your communication tools to stay actively involved in your studies. Now create chat groups with your friends. Study groups, chat study groups, Ask questions on these groups. Bring out questions that are difficult and let you and your friends brainstorm and come up with the answers. I'm not saying that you shouldn't greet your friends or have time to chat once in a while, but you have something ahead of you right now and you need to achieve it. So minimize the chatting, stay actively involved in your studies. And then finally, take care of yourself, eat well, exercise, and sleep well. I did not say sleep till the next day by 1 p.m. and then you get up. That is not what I am saying. Take care of yourself. Sleep well. Sleep at the right time. Make sure you get enough sleep. Do not oversleep. This is not the time to oversleep. Okay, moving on. Some facts you should know about the exam. Now, here are some facts you should know about the exam. You already know these things, but this is just a reminder. Firstly, the comprehension passage is part of paper 2 of the exam. It's part of paper 2 of the exam. And in the SS3 exam, WAEC precisely, you have to answer 2 comprehension passages. And each of these passages carry 20 marks. So we're looking at a total of 40 marks. 40 marks, people, 40 marks. 40 marks, getting 40 marks will go a long way in ensuring that you get an A in English language. And then do not be in a hurry to answer your comprehension passage without taking time to understand the passage. Many students have failed English language because of this. I do not know whether it's because of terror, exam terror. When they get into the exam, they just get the passages and just begin to read and then begin to answer questions without even understanding what they have read. So this is important. You need to understand the questions or the passage before you go ahead. Now, how do I keep these 40 marks intact? How do I keep these 40 marks intact? How do I keep those 40 marks intact? First of all, you read the passage very carefully, at least 3 times, and make sure you understand the passage. The first reading brings you into close contact with the theme of the passage. So read the passage the second time, and while reading, take note of the author's attitude. Now, the author's attitude is very important. Sometimes the author is sad, sometimes he's angry, sometimes he's happy. And whenever the author's attitude shows in the passage, you can be sure that you're going to be asked a question concerning it. So be careful to note. That is why it is important to know how is the author, what mood do you think the author is in as he's writing this? It's important to know that. That is why you have to read the passage at least 3 times. Okay, so you take note of the author's attitude to the underlying message of the passage, and after reading the second time, you read the questions in order to know the main points emphasized in the passage. Then read the passage for the third time. While reading, note the relevant points that answer the questions on the passage. Now, if you read the passage twice and then look at the questions, believe me, by the time you're reading the passage the third time, the answers, you'll just begin to see the answers and begin to tick them. Okay, so it is important that you read at least 3 times while remaining focused. Then your answers should be in sentences unless otherwise stated. Please, just write out the answer in sentences. When you are asked a question, do not just pick out what the answers are. Write the answers in sentences unless otherwise stated. And then avoid mindless lifting. Some of you do not want to do any work at all. You just want to carry everything that the author has written and then carry it into your answer scripts. No, use your own words. In using your words, the examiners or the people marking will know that you really understand what you have read, okay? That you understood what you read, rather, that you've understood what you read. So please do not avoid mindless lifting. That is not to say that you cannot lift some of the passage, but use your own words. You should know when to do that, please. It's really important. You must be able to use your own words or expressions to show that you really understood the passage. Then if you are asked to show comparison between 2 things or more in the passage, your answer must show comparison. I remember a passage we treated in class. That was 2018. I think that was 2018 WAEC, where questions were asked. The passage was based on drug abuse, and questions were asked concerning drug abuse. And then we noted that people answered the questions as if they were answering questions that had been asked on drug addiction. Drug abuse and drug addiction are related, yes, but sometimes you need to separate them. And in this particular question, we were focused on drug abuse, not drug addiction, and many people made that mistake. So please, when you're told to show comparison between two things, make sure the two things will be there. The comparison will be there. Just make sure you read it, understand it, and then answer the questions. Then, where you are asked to replace an underlined word in the passage with another word, your answer must fit in perfectly in terms of the contextual meaning. Words in context. The answer must mean the same thing if the underlined word is removed. Synonyms. Now, if the underlined word is removed and you replace it with a synonym, it must carry the same message. It must carry the same message that the underlined word carried before you removed it. So if the underlined word is a noun, you must replace it with a noun. If it was a plural noun, you must replace it with a plural noun. It makes more sense. And then your answers must make sense before any part of it is accepted for scoring. Therefore, endeavor to give the correct answers. Definitely. Do not spell words wrongly. I just told you about Google. If you're not sure about the spelling, you have enough time now. Go on Google, type in the word, Google will correct it for you. Spelling your words correctly shows your diligence. Therefore, you must take pains to spell your words correctly and avoid grammatical blunders, because there is penalty for the use of wrong grammar. There must be an agreement between the subject and verb in your sentence. Okay. Now, why do students lose marks in comprehension questions? Well, you should know based on what we have talked about. Giving two answers to a question. When you are told to give, please note this. When you're told to give one answer, please give one answer. I know you know it. I know you are very intelligent, but if WAEC requires one answer, please give one answer. Do not tell your examiners that you know more. Then, in giving two answers to a question, you don't need a soothsayer to tell you that you are expected to give one answer to a question when you're told to give one answer to a question. I said this earlier on. Then, where you are told to give two answers, if you fail one, if one of them is incorrect, then you've lost the whole marks. You've lost the total marks you were supposed to get for that particular question. So please be careful. Do not replace underlined words with the wrong synonyms. We've said that. We've talked about grammatical errors. Please be careful. You can lose a mark and a half, for grammatical blunders. And then giving answers that are not contained in the passage. This is really important. Do not express your own thoughts except you are asked. Do not express your thoughts. Do not express your opinions when they are not needed. Please just answer the questions. Do not overdo. I know you are intelligent. I know that you go to a good school. But please just look at the instructions. Answer the questions you are supposed to answer. Do not give your opinions when you're not asked to. That is important, or else you could lose your marks. Okay. Here's a sample comprehension passage and the questions. I am going to pick out just a few questions, a few questions to treat to form as your guide. A few questions that I will answer, they will form a guide for you to answer the other questions in this comprehension passage, and that will be your assignment for me. Now, let us read the following passage and try to answer the questions. In Africa, there are more kinds of people with more differences among them, language, size, color, clothes, food, than there are in the other countries. The knee-high pygmies are known as the shortest people on earth, while the giants Watusis are Africa's tallest and most beautiful. There are examples of the lightest and darkest races with shades ranging from yellow through brown to black. Differences also exist in culture and history, with Ethiopians claiming that they have the longest history. There was slavery in the ancient world, and slaves were of all nations and races. An Ethiopian Aesop was among the slaves in ancient Greece. He had a flat nose, thick lips, and black skin. But these Negroid features had nothing to do with slavery in those days. The victor in battle enslaved his enemy, and the debtor would pay in labor what he could not pay in cash or food. The penalty for witchcraft, the punishment for coveting a neighbor's wife, and the retribution for showing disrespect for another's religion was bondage. Even in times of famine or great deprivation, wives and daughters were sold into slavery. This mode of slavery was practiced in Africa too, but it was not business. The first slaves in modern times were captured years before Columbus landed in America. A Portuguese navigator exploring the west coast of Africa became the first modern slave trader. His men captured a fine-looking Moor wandering along the beach to save his own life. In exchange for the release, this wealthy Moor offered his captors 10 Negro boys who were eventually taken to Portugal, where they served in the homes of the rich. Soon, the demand for African slaves became so great that ships returning from Africa brought young Negro boys as well as girls. Exploration was replaced by the lucrative trade in human beings, and Portuguese traders began selling people to Spain and other countries long before other Europeans, the French, the Dutch, and the Danes entered the trade. Competition was so keen that these villains who were scrambling for slaves like hungry wolves began to take slaves any way they could, sometimes capturing entire villages. One could count myriads of heads loaded on ships like cattle. The English were later attracted to the trade and became so active that they soon outdid the other countries. Their deliveries were far larger and more regular. Okay, now questions. For each of the following words underlined in the passage, give another word or phrase which means the same and can replace it in the passage. Shades, retribution, release, lucrative, villains, and outdid. Okay, and then we have the other questions, B to H. What are the three features of the Ethiopian that identified him as a Negro? State the main differences between slavery as practiced in Africa and that practiced by Europeans later. Why did the Moor give away as many as 10 Negro boys for his release? And then etc. etc. So like I said, I'm going to pick out some relevant questions that will form as a guide, to helping you answer the other questions. Now, how do we approach these questions? Question A, we're supposed to replace the word shades with another word that means the same. Now, how do you approach these questions? First of all, locate the word shades in the paragraph or in the passage or in any other one. Any other word given to you in a passage, try to locate the words first. And then when you locate the words, examine the context in which it is used. Now, the word shades, is located in paragraph 1. And in examining the context in which it is used, it says there are examples of the lightest and darkest races with shades ranging from yellow through brown to black. So clearly the words used in association with shades have something to do with color. And since we are talking about kinds of people or races, we're talking about skin color or complexion. That's what the writer is referring to when he talks about shades. It is important, please note, it is important that you look at the way the word was used in the sentence or in the passage. Look at the environment of the word. It will help you to know what to replace it with, which synonym to replace it with that will mean the same thing. Please look at the environment, examine the context in which it was used or it is used. That is looking at the environment. So the environment of shades here is that there are examples of the lightest and darkest races with shades ranging from yellow through brown to black. And like I said earlier on, it's talking about skin color or complexion. So if I were to replace shades with skin color or complexion, it will still mean the same thing. Okay, and since we're talking about shades, it's plural, then it should be colors or complexions. Okay, so if I say there are examples of the lightest and darkest races with colors or with complexions ranging from yellow through brown to black, then I mean the same thing. So complexions actually is what I would have fixed in here. Complexions. Question number 2, retribution. Now, I find this question very funny because they were answering the question for you even as they were asking it. So retribution is located in paragraph 2. And the context, the environment in which retribution was used or is used in the paragraph is the penalty for witchcraft, the punishment for coveting. Please, this is a typographical error. Coveting is C-O-V-E-T, not C-O-V-E-R-T. Okay? The penalty for witchcraft, the punishment for coveting a neighbor's life, and the retribution for showing disrespect for another's religion were bondage. People. Penalty is the same thing as punishment. Punishment is the same thing as penalty. Retribution is the same thing as penalty. Retribution is the same thing as punishment. So they just used synonyms here. The penalty for witchcraft, the punishment for witchcraft, the punishment for coveting, the penalty for coveting, the retribution, they are synonyms and they can be used interchangeably. Okay, so the answer here is either penalty or punishment. Okay, so the retribution for showing disrespect for another's religion was bondage. The penalty, the punishment, that can be used here. Okay, release. Release is located in paragraph 3. And the context in which it was used, it says, his men captured a fine-looking Moor wandering along the beach. To save his own life and in exchange for his release, this wealthy Moor offered his captors 10 Negro boys who were eventually taken to Portugal, where they served in the homes of the rich. Captured. A captured person is like a prisoner. He can no longer enjoy his freedom, so he will do anything to gain his freedom back. To save his own life, the Moor was captured and his life was in danger. He could only be safe, save his own life, when he regained his freedom, and he must do something for his freedom. He must do something for his release. Exchange and wealthy. Okay, the Moor was rich, wealthy, so he could afford to obtain, buy or pick 10 Negro boys in exchange to pay for his freedom, his release. Mind you, slavery was not new in Africa, and it was the rich and powerful, like this wealthy Moor, who could own slaves, like these 10 Negro boys. So the boys went to serve in place of the Moor. A servant is not a free person. Servants do not have freedom. So it was for his freedom that the Moor traded or exchanged the boys. Thus, your answer could be freedom. In exchange for his release, in exchange for his freedom, okay, this wealthy Moor offered his captors 10 Negro boys. That is why I said it is important that you look at the environment in which the word is used. If you look at the environment and reason it out, it will help you to answer the question. This environment is what we call contextual meaning. What does it mean in this particular context? Okay. Now, what are the 3 features of the Ethiopian that identified him as a Negro? Key words to note are 3 features, Ethiopian identified Negro. The 3 means you don't state 2 or 1. And if they asked you for 3, it means they have 3 here, there. If they asked you for, they cannot ask you for 4 or 5 when they asked you for 3. If they said 3, it means 3. Even if they listed 5, if they say 3, ladies and gentlemen, please pick 3. The features, the characteristics, or the attributes. Ethiopian, not European, no, not the Moor or the Portuguese or the Englishman. It is the Ethiopian they are talking about. Then, identified. It is all about the identity or identification of a Negro. What things about him can make you identify him as a Negro, not a Moor. These things are stated in the passage. You don't need to look too far. So, an Ethiopian Aesop was among the slaves in ancient Greece. He had a flat nose, thick lips, and black skin. But these Negroid features had nothing to do with slavery in those days. They gave you the three features: flat nose, thick lips, and black skin. But ladies and gentlemen, please note, this is one of those questions that you answer with a sentence. Do not just go and say flat nose, thick lips, black skin. You got it. But if I were to write the Ethiopian Negroid features, or the features which identify the Ethiopian as a Negro, the features which identify the Ethiopian as a Negro were his flat nose, thick lips, and black skin. I will get my mark. In fact, if it is possible to get an extra mark on this, I will get it, because I have answered the question with some of my own words. I put it in my own way, and that has helped me to answer the questions a little bit better. But if you just go and write flat nose, thick lips, black skin, they will give it to you. He won't take it over. I think it is more appropriate. And if I were the one marking that you mentioned flat nose, thick lips, and black skin, if I were supposed to give you 5 marks, I'll probably give you 4.5. You lose half. You lose half mark. If there's anything like that, you lose half a mark. But if you write it in the sentence, the features which identify the Ethiopian as a Negro were his flat nose, I will give you 5. If it is possible to give you 6, I will. But of course, it can only be 5. Okay. Now, to the area where people find comprehension questions difficult. Okay, question G. This is a guide. I'm not answering all the questions like I said earlier on. Who were eventually taken to Portugal, underlined. Okay. Now, what is the grammatical name for this construction? What is its grammatical function? Now, these questions will always come out. Why? I do not know. Do we need them in future? Well, I don't know. But I know that the questions will always come out. So you should know your phrases and your clauses and how they should be used. Now, grammatical name, you're often referring to a phrase or a clause. And just know, when you look at it, you'll be able to identify. That's the first thing. Is this a phrase or is this a clause? If it is a phrase, it will not have a verb, a finite verb. If it is a clause, it will have a finite verb. So, who were eventually taken to Portugal? Now, taken to Portugal. Yes. So, we have a helping verb here, were, and then taken. So, right now, you know that this is a clause. That's the first thing. So, what kind of clause is it? What kind of clause is it? Let's read. Function is determined by the position of the underlined in relation to another word or phrase outside the underlined group. Okay. Now, the grammatical name, is it a clause or a phrase? We have identified that it is a clause. Then what is its function? Its function is identified by its position in relation to another part of the sentence, either the earlier part of the sentence or the later part of the sentence. But mostly, it's always the earlier part of the sentence. Okay. So, what is it saying? This wealthy Moor who offered his captors 10 Negro boys who were eventually taken to Portugal. That is the environment. Well, look, we're seeing environment here again because it has to be in relation to what was written earlier on. So you can see that the construction begins with who. So it is likely that it is an adjectival clause. How? Then also it can answer the question which. Adjectives usually answer the question which kind or which type. Whom or which. Now, they are saying something, 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 who were eventually taken to Portugal. So, that who there tells you that you are talking about somebody. You are talking about somebody. So, that alone will let you know that this part of the sentence is talking about somebody. It's giving you more information about somebody. It is describing somebody. And in this case, what is that part of speech that describes? only one part of speech describes, and that is the adjective. The adjective describes the noun phrase, or a pronoun. So if it is giving you more information, if it is describing and who is describing, then just know that this is an adjectival clause. It's an adjective, and because it's an adjective and there's a clause there, we have identified from the beginning, then it's an adjectival clause. Okay, so adjectives usually answer the question which kind or which type. In this case, which Negro boys? The answer will be the Negro boys who were eventually taken to Portugal. So thus, it is an adjective, not a noun. It's not an adverb. Definitely not an adverb. Definitely not a noun. It begins with who. Okay. Now, it says the next question you may ask, which type of adjective? Is it a phrase or a clause? We've already identified that it's a clause. That is the first thing you actually do. So now you can see that the construction has a finite verb, taken, like I had said earlier on. So it is easy to derive a complete sentence out of the construction. So it cannot be a phrase, but rather a clause. So when you put the two together, and you have the adjectival clause. So your answer is that it is that the grammatical name, it is an adjectival clause. Now going back to the question, or to the context of the question, you will realize that this construction is functioning in the usual way most adjectives do. That is, it is specifying, qualifying, modifying, describing a noun. Okay, and that noun or noun phrase it is describing is the boy or the Negro boys, the boys or the Negro boys. So it's giving more information about the boys or the Negro boys. Therefore, your answer is an adjectival clause. Okay, then the last question I'm going to treat, heads loaded on ships. What literary device is used in the above expression? Now, question analysis. The question concerns literary appreciation and not grammatical analysis. So you must know your literary terms. Okay, your literary terms, you must know them. Your metaphor, your simile, your oxymoron, your synecdoche, your paradox, personification, and the rest of them. You must know them, and you must know how they are used. Now this question, competition was so keen that these villains who were scrambling for slaves like hungry wolves began to take slaves any way they could, sometimes capturing entire villages. One could count myriads of heads loaded on ships like a cattle. And the question is heads loaded on ships. The underlined question is head loaded on ship. And they're asking what literary device is used in this expression. Now, the writer is talking about the way slaves were captured and then transported on ships across the sea to faraway lands. And he says heads, referring to slaves. These heads here, we're talking about slaves. Okay, heads loaded on ships. Okay, it's clearly talking about parts of the body, heads, and this is used to refer to the whole. And synecdoche means when you use part to refer to the whole. Please do not be confused and say that this is simile. No, because of where it says, let me find that, where it says one could count myriads of heads loaded on ships like cattle. No, like cattle wasn't involved in the expression. It just said heads loaded on ships. So please do not get confused. Synecdoche is when we're talking about, synecdoche is usually used or comes into play when part of something is used to represent a whole. So heads loaded on ship, we're talking about human beings loaded on ships, and it talks about heads. Okay, not literally the heads alone. Those heads represent the whole human body. So the answer is synecdoche. Now, if you know the meanings of these literary terms, it will help you in identifying them. They are so easy. it will help you in identifying them once you see them. So this is not simile, neither is it a metaphor. It is synecdoche. Okay, so I've answered a few questions. I have used them as your guide, so you can handle the other questions yourself. And let me see how far you will go. So please, as usual, send your answers to my email address or my WhatsApp number. The internet is free. When I mean free, I don't mean that you don't pay for them, but anybody can access the internet just as long as you have your data. So some of you have used your parents' phone to respond to my earlier assignments, and that is good. So please do this one. I'm going to grade this one. I'm going to grade it, and it's going to go a long way to helping me know how you are preparing for the exam. And so until I see you next time, I miss you all. I can't wait to have you back in school for your exams. All the best. Hey.